Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we'll be discussing Chapter 10 of Whither Are We Traveling, titled Bring the Line Up to the Standard.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have 3/4 of our usual host body. We have a Worship Brother Jarrod Dunham from Penticton Lodge number 147 in British Columbia. We have, he doesn't have his name up, Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung from Prince Charles Lodge number that I've forgotten.
153.
153. Thank you. Sorry. In lovely Kelowna, British Columbia. And I'm Matt Appel, and I'm a member of Mill Creek Lodge number 243. And we meet in Montlake Terrace, Washington. David can be here today. He's apparently, whatever, he thinks his family's more important than we are or something, so he's off doing that. But today...
He's in lovely Victoria.
Yes, yeah, he's a good point. He's in British Columbia instead of talking to us on the Zoom here. So Chapter 10 is Bring the Line Up to the Standard. Essentially, it's about standards in Masonry and keeping them or letting them go. Since I'm the one yapping at the moment, I'll put my 2 cents in. I love the opening imagery of this thing, of the first paragraph or two where the guy is carrying the standard and he gets too far ahead, and they tell him to come back to the military formation he's supposed to be with, and he says, "No, you get up here." And some part of me thinks that's really cool. There's another part of me that says, well, maybe not. But as with most things, I have 2 minds. What did you guys think of this chapter? Did it speak to you particularly?
I mean, it is what I always say. Is that there are certain standards in life that just need to be met, and they're not met most of the time.
Yep, I concur. It's really too bad, and I don't know why. After joining an organization like this, that people don't tend to still want to hold themselves to those standards. They get complacent, I think.
I'm always reminded of a saying that I say that I'm not sure, it might be not a real saying, but I say it all the time anyway, which is that familiarity breeds contempt.
No, that's a real saying. You're good.
Oh, good. Woo! But for me, that is because, for me, I see it because so much of our lodges are made up of older members who have been around for a while. It's the fact that they've just gotten comfortable and lax in their adherence to the standards that we originally set for them when they first joined. And because we're not getting as many new members as we used to, people aren't refreshing their memory of what it is that is actually expected of them in lodge and as a Freemason.
Yeah, I got to say, he sort of addresses sort of soup to nuts every standard I could think of in this thing. He seems to harp a lot on dress and appearance, but there are some other things about ritual quality and maintaining decorum in the lodge and that sort of stuff. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, I think that. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna cue you. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think where you were kind of going was where this one particular pair or phrase. We see in bringing. When we cease to set a lofty mark and expect our brethren to measure up to it, when we permit a downward adjustment to conform to practices and manners that are casual and lax and crude, we're dealing with our beloved fraternity a double blow, or we're dealing our beloved fraternity a double blow, and we are really. I find it especially difficult because I'm the lodge officer's coach in my lodge, and I know what's expected, and I know the standards that we upheld for so many years. Like we squared our corners properly, we walked sharply, we talked, and we addressed the chair properly. We followed and conformed to the ways that we were taught it was supposed to be done in lodge. And when I see guys, cut their corners, go diagonally across the room, ad lib the ritual to a point where it's not even half right. It gets very challenging to actually sit and actually watch, for me anyways.
Oh yeah, there's nothing more frustrating than someone during a practice, or even when we're performing our ritual, flubbing a line or adjusting the wording of a line, and then later on someone say, well, it doesn't really matter as long as you get the gist. And I'm like, no, the words matter. The word order matters. I know it's that old weird English language that some people don't like, but when it's a slippery slope when we start allowing people to slide on little things that
And I do understand that it's challenging when you don't have the membership to pull it off, and you're relying on guys that have been doing it for 100 years, and but now they're at an age where they're getting fed every other word, and then they're given a book and they're going, yeah, that's it. And then they're not even really reading it properly out of the book, right? And it's because they can't see it, and it's but that's when the lodges need to come together. I mean, we struggle with the membership in our lodge to pull off a Master Mason degree in the ancient work. We rely on our good brothers from the south and the north to come and participate and fill in different roles. And of course, we have many practices when we do that, simply because we're now taking people from different teams and asking them all to work together, right? So it's really nice that we have that resource in our valley. Some other lodges, I'm sure, are in districts that don't have that ability, whether they're do different work, or whether they just don't have another lodge close enough to them. I can understand why we tend to think it's going to be okay, or that we'll just let it slide this time, and but in the same token, that's that double-edged sword, that double blow that refers to, because it degrades the quality of our work moving forward.
So, as you got close to one of my questions about this, which maybe it's more in here than I think it is, but my recollection of the article from when I read it many moons ago is he talks a lot about standards that he doesn't feel are being upheld in dress, or he seems to particularly gripe about people tying their apron behind their back instead of, I guess, in front of them and wrapping it around again. I'm not sure how much I feel aggrieved about that one. But what should one do if one sees the standards are not being upheld? What do you propose we do? Do we have Grand Lodge start cracking down on lodges? Do we start yanking charters? What's the...
Well, I don't know if yanking. I mean, I guess it depends on how bad the situation is before you start yanking. Mister, I want to yank everyone's charter.
Oh yeah, that's me.
That's you. I know. No, but well, in all honesty, and we shouldn't, as senior members of our lodges, we should feel obligated to call out shortcomings that we see. Maybe not in the middle of lodge, but definitely at boards of general purpose, or when after lodge in other meetings. But I think the problem is it seems like people are willing to complain about it, but no one's willing, because no one's willing to do anything about it, because the problem is if we're going to complain about it, we have to make sure that we're living up to the standard that we want. As an aside, all right, I'll use an example. And I love bringing it back to the fencing that I do. Is when the practice is up here, when we go to practice, I run people through practices in a very specific way, and we do drills and stuff. And the group up here wasn't doing drills when I started going out. So I would go out with a couple of my friends, we would do drills, and eventually everyone else started picking up on that. And now there's more people doing drills. You do that in lodge too. One guy doing his work really well motivates another person to do their job really well. And soon enough, if you're consistent with it, you will see improvement. But it starts with you, and you have to be willing to take the flack from people who will think that you're either showboating or being too serious.
Well, and that's where, as the lodge officers coach, I do take a little bit of flack because I do come down on them, or but like you say, I don't do it in lodge. I approach them outside of lodge, and I offer to give them assistance in practicing their work. And of course they all say yes, yes, yes. And then you crickets, right? But, it's to the point sometimes where, I'm going to have to bring it up at the next board of general purpose. Right. Because then at least we're all there together to discuss it, so if the whole lodge is not, of the opinion that, we'll just let it slide and we'll deal with it, then, that's the decision of the majority of membership. Right. And then that causes different decisions to be made.
So what I'm hearing is A, get your own stuff in one sock, and 2, whisper wise counsel.
Yeah, kind of. I think that's really the only way or the only shot we have of improving it. Lead by example and whisper wise counsel, right? And then, of course, next Monday, because I just got told about it today or on Friday, I'm going to have to read the examination for the fellow or entered apprentice, because our senior deacon won't be there to do it. And he's the guy who knows it. So, again, I'm going to have to step up and do the examination with the paperwork in front of me. Right. And that just eats at me. I will feel so guilty for so long, right, that I'll actually probably put the work in, figure it out, and bring it back up to snuff, and then we won't have an EA for a while.
So that kind of begs the question, and I'm not for your lodge or anything, but why not postpone it? If you feel that you're not going to be doing a job worthy of the duty, is there a reason why you can't postpone it?
Because the entered apprentice has it's taken him so long to do it. We're well past his first year, and he needs to be able to move forward, and because he's done his work, he's the one proving himself. This is like one of those rare circumstances where I don't mind doing it this way, so that we can advance the brothers' journey. Because if we now had to wait for that one fellow to be back in lodge and able to do it, we've had the problem of scheduling, right? And now he's decided to retire and only be here for 6 months. Now we're going to have to come up with another plan, right? So, all these things just keep getting thrown at you, right? But do you hold the guy back in his journey, or what do you do, right? You could hold him back in it.
Once again, you're
right?
I'm just
Yeah.
just saying this out because it's fun to do it. You're setting the standard that he's going to apply to himself now.
Yes, it's very unfortunate. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a critique on my. It's
Yeah.
just it is actually a good point for this, and that we set the standard that people meet, and if we allow people to, I mean, it's what the article's all about too. Is he says that if you allow people to, if you allow them to slide from the standards that you want to set, you get the substandard lodges.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, yeah. Part of the problem of lack of membership, right? Otherwise we'd have more guys prepared and we'd have backups for these types of things, right? And unfortunately, examinations are one of those things that not a lot of people prepare themselves to perform.
No.
Right? There's lots of lectures, there's lots of other parts and roles and degrees, and there's guys that know many different parts, right? But that's one component of our ritual that we don't seem to have a lot of that of. So we personally, I think because this has taken so long and we're on the clock with this fellow, that I think that we'd be doing more harm and delaying him. And chances are he probably wouldn't get to prove up until just before summer if we were to wait for somebody else to learn the work, right? And that would be unfair to the brother going through, I think, in my opinion. Being that I'm this guy stuck doing it, I guess I got I got to accept that one.
So I think we've discussed. Like I said, he spends a fair amount of time discussing attire and lodge. I think we've beaten that horse before on various podcast episodes. Especially there was a whole one about Steve's attire at a lodge meeting. So I don't know that. Although I did find it amusing. He makes a comment that people don't dress as nicely for a lodge as they do for church, and I think I dress way nicer for lodge than I do for church. I'm whatever. I'm wearing a tuxedo or a dark suit, and I go to church like this. So it's
well. And where was he saying he was from?
Illinois,
Indiana. Right?
Yeah,
Indiana.
Indiana. I don't know, one of those I states.
Yeah, that brings another interesting point, because in different areas, different dress code is applied in certain jurisdictions and not in others. Like the first time I went to go visit across the border to a lodge, it was apparently an important night. It was people were traveling from all over, and you go there, and the district deputy grand masters in cowboy boots and jeans and a shirt, not even a dress shirt, but I think it was a collared shirt though. Right? But that was really shocking, because there's 8 of us standing there in tuxedos, right? And so we were feeling really overdressed when we went to that lodge, right? In comparison to who was there, right? We felt we were right, in being dressed the way we were, and but it did give us that feeling like, yeah, we were overdressed for our hosts, and then that gave us, well, how do we ever know what is acceptable for dress in certain lodges? And that's a really good question, because I still don't know the answer to that. I don't know how, unless you know the lodge or somebody from the lodge that you're going to, where you can ask.
Yeah, I agree. There are lodges in Washington here that are very, very informal, and then there are other ones that are, like I said, our lodge, the officers are expected to wear tuxedos. So it's a different vibe. My my personal opinion, which will make Jarrod even grumpier than the skeptical look that he's giving me now, is that the lodge should set a standard and should adhere to that standard. And the I mean, everyone should know it. So, like, there's a lodge not too far from here where they have a sort of railroad theme, and all the officers wear like those old Western sort of uniform shirts, and they have their lodge name stencil or not stenciled, stitched on it and stuff. And that's sort of their gig, and that's what they do. But that's what they have decided to. That's the standard they have set. If you were to show up in a t-shirt, you would look out of place. Similarly, I went there in a tie once for a visit, and they threatened to chop it off. So it's a different vibe, different places. So
Right.
and yeah, I actually visited a lodge in Florida once, and I ended up calling them up ahead of time, which I know I shouldn't have done. I should have gone through the Grand Lodge, but so it wasn't me. I know a guy once who went to visit a lodge in Florida, so he called them up. And I asked that, hey, I'm visiting Florida. What's your attire? I want to come visit a lodge, and they said it was just polo shirts and slacks. So that was what I brought with me, which was nice because I didn't have to bring a suit with me because it's the only reason I would have brought one. But yeah, so sometimes it helps to ask ahead or whatever. But I don't. If the lodge sets a standard, I don't know that I have to say that standard has to be tuxedos or it has to be jacket and tie. I guess in my ideal world, I would prefer it. And I know Jarrod is getting more and more skeptical by the second of my talking. But I don't know. That's my opinion. Apparently I'm the loosey goosey Mason in the bunch here.
Well, and I think that's the point that he's making in the article too. Not your point, but that he thinks that lodge attire should be more formalized and more formal.
Yeah.
But and that can also be taken to, I mean, that can be that not taken to the extreme, but that taken to the point of, how like if you go like in a polo shirt and stuff, how serious are you actually treating this commitment? If you're not willing to if the lodge is not requiring you to will require you to put in an effort to dress better than you would normally, then are you really making that effort yourself to improve? And how serious should you take what you learn in lodge?
Yeah,
I mean, it's lodge is not a casual thing. I mean, if you want a casual get together with your friends and stuff, that's great, but that's not lodge. That's not Freemasonry.
Right.
And I feel that we need to make more of an effort than we would normally. And to use like the analogy of what you worded, because I live just around the corner from a church, and I was out cleaning my car today, and there were people going to church in jeans, and I know my grandmother would have like marched me back into the house if hey, I'm going to, no, you're not. So yeah, but once again, that's because of I don't want to say lowering of standards, but like the casualness of our world as it is anyway. I mean, the business attire has become exceedingly casual, even compared to 30 years ago. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not either.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that the three of us are wearing polo shirts at the moment, and I think for the majority of people that would be dressing up.
Right, and for us, we kind of think it's dressing down, and it's okay because we're on the audio, and we forget about the video aspect of our recordings, right? Because for so long we were not doing video, right? And now more of the podcast applications are allowing the video aspect. So things we have to adjust to. But again, to Jarrod's point of we should be holding ourselves to a little bit of a higher standard. That also comes to things like respect in the lodge when people are doing work. Hearing the chitter chatter on the sidelines, it's very distracting and disrespectful to the guys who are actually there doing work and trying to do something from memory. And that really should be curbed more than it currently is, and is a bit frustrating as well. And especially when guys make a joke out of something in lodge when they're doing the ritual during a degree, and it causes a few people to snicker, right? Because they get that humor, but our candidate doesn't. Our candidate now is wondering what's going on, right? And I really wish that kind of thing wouldn't happen either. So I think all in all, we need to work harder to be doing better and performing better overall in every aspect of lodge.
I 100% agree. My personal opinion, again, take it for what it's worth, is that the behavior of Masons, both in and out of lodge, is, heck, it's what Masonry is all about, I guess, right? On some level, it's improving yourself and making yourself better and behaving better, right? But behaving more appropriately in lodge is something that I wish we had more brothers who cared about, the decorum that they spread in lodge. There are some guys I try not to sit next to because I don't want to be seen as being part of the group that's distracting people. Because even though I'm not going to say anything, they'll look like they're talking to me, and I don't want to be painted with that brush. All right, so I think we've talked about that a fair amount. Does anybody have any further burning issue that you want to bring forth about bring the line to the standard? Hearing none, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. We enjoy talking, and we enjoy hearing from you even more than we enjoy hearing ourselves talk, which is saying something. So please let us know if you have any thoughts on the episodes or topics, and in any of the various places where we are. And with that, on behalf of Jarrod and Stephen and the absent David and myself, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.